Let's begin, Mika, in Israel as that country continues its offensive into Gaza, pushing further into the southern part of the territory on a mission to destroy Hamas. Yesterday, IDF officials announced they struck dozens of terrorist targets in the area, including a tunnel shaft. Now, the United States is urging Israel to do more to protect civilians and to allow aid into Gaza. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel reports.
2 months after Hamas killed more than 1,200 people in Israel, the Israeli military is escalating its campaign to overthrow the group in Gaza. But for the 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza who can't leave, the war isn't the only danger. Hunger is spreading. Massive crowds gathered outside a food distribution center. The UN is warning of a humanitarian catastrophe. Just across the border from Gaza, we visited the kibbutz Nir Oz, where on October 7th, Hamas fighters killed and kidnapped everyone they could find. Driven by her neighbor, Irina Tati returned. The 73-year-old was held hostage by Hamas in Gaza and freed last week. She was overwhelmed by the damage. Her door is still smashed in. Hamas dragged her away from here. Irina came back to collect a prayer book for Hanukkah. Her neighbor, Rita Lifshitz, tells her Hamas is still firing rockets and she should go to the safe room if there's incoming. Irina badly wanted to see if her cat was still alive. She thought about the cat while a hostage, and when she found him, she smiled.
What's it like for you to come back here after all that you've been through?
Here I feel better, but not very well. I want the war to stop, she says. She did not want to talk about what happened to her while she was a captive. And Irina's 28-year-old grandson is still being held in Gaza. Hanukkah is a holiday of light. People close to us in Gaza must return home, she says. Hamas went house to house here for 8 agonizing hours before any rescue came. Residents locked themselves in their safe rooms. So Hamas set houses on fire to smoke them out. Rita says many here are furious at Hamas and the government.
How did it take 8 hours to have a response?
Why it took 8 hours? Because they didn't care. 6:30 they came in here.
Rita took me to the local post office, where the boxes have been marked with stickers.
This is one of the most disturbing images that I've seen in a long time. This post office, and on the boxes, red, killed, blue, returned, black, dead.
Yes.
And to be honest, there's not a lot of blue.
Next door is the cafeteria, where the tables are set for those who can't come, the dead and missing. 1 out of every 4 people who lived on this kibbutz was either murdered or taken hostage.
Now it's the first holiday of the kibbutz that is not happening, and we need to bring them back now.
Richard Engel joins us now live from Jerusalem. Richard, just incredible reporting there. We heard in your piece the frustration with the Israeli military response, the time that it took on October 7th to reach those kibbutzes. We were talking about that a bit yesterday on this show. What do officials say about that long span of time before they could get there?
They are saying absolutely nothing. They are postponing that question until after the war is over. And many Israelis initially were accepting that. And they said, fine, this is a time of national crisis, national emergency. The investigations will be held later. But as time passes, they are demanding answers. How could it possibly have taken, in just that kibbutz, 8 hours? Other places, it was longer. We spoke to people who were hiding by the side of the road for 10, 12, 14 hours, some cases 24 hours. This is a country with an active military, active police force, has lots of planes, lots of helicopters. How could it possibly, and it's a small country, how could they have missed what looked like an army crossing the border? The Hamas militants crossed into Israel, most of them in a militarized uniform, in green, many of them in vehicles, on motorcycles. They then were setting fires, rampaging. The Israelis throughout were calling each other, communicating. I've spoken to families of survivors who managed themselves to send friends and relatives to go rescue people before there was any kind of military or police response. So there was not just an intelligence failure to not anticipate this attack, but then a complete failure in responding to it. And the official line is, yes, there was a failure. We will deal with that at a later time, and there will be a full and thorough investigation.
Yeah, that's all we've heard, too, is it's not the time or the place to talk about that. That day will come. For now, we have to root out Hamas, but obviously some serious questions posed by the people who suffered the most, like the woman you spoke to there. By the way, in our next hour, we'll speak to a spokeswoman for Prime Minister Netanyahu and put that question to her as well. Richard, so Israel also now saying it has detained hundreds of people suspected of terrorism. What more can you tell us about that?
So there is a considerable amount of confusion about these images that many people are finding disturbing. They were broadcast on Israeli television extensively yesterday, and they show at least 100 Palestinians on the ground, stripped down to their underwear, holding their head in their hands, guarded by Israeli troops. And the Israeli military spokesman said that they were not officially released by the military. He didn't deny them, but he said he didn't know if or when the Israeli soldiers may have taken them. But he said that the main mission is to confront Hamas and go after Hamas suspects wherever they are. The Israeli media said that they were men who were arrested in Gaza, and that some of them included Hamas suspects who turned themselves in. Palestinians are viewing this very differently. They say that this was an attempt by Israeli forces to humiliate Palestinians and break the will of the people in Gaza.
NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel reporting again this morning for us from Israel. Richard, thanks so much. So, Jonathan Lemire, we know that yesterday President Biden spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Obviously, again, public support for the mission to destroy Hamas, but again, emphasizing perhaps even a little more strongly this time the need to avoid civilian casualties and to allow routes for aid to get in.
Yeah, this is probably the sharpest criticism the White House has delivered yet to what the Israeli military is doing in Gaza. The president expressed that in his phone call with the prime minister, but also we heard publicly from Secretary of State Blinken, who held a news conference yesterday and was very frank. And he said, when I visited the region last and talked about the effort to limit civilian casualties, what I said then and what is actually happening, a gap remains in between, meaning that Israel has very much not done what it promised to do to not take out these civilians. These are obviously disturbing images yesterday. We don't know much about them just yet with these Palestinians being held, but we do know that the civilian casualty total continues to rise. It remains very high. And to this point, Mike, I mean, the White House is still very clear, and that's not going to change. They're supporting Israel. But there seems to be a real growing rift with how this war is being conducted. And we know privately, the president has some real misgivings about the Israeli prime minister.
I think he probably privately has some real misgivings about Bibi Netanyahu. Yes, indeed. It's a highly controversial thing that's going on in Israel right now. You have the most congested urban situation in the world in Gaza, and you have ongoing combat each and every hour of each and every day. You have a nation, Israel, a small nation, as Richard just pointed out in the report, consumed by the fate of the hostages and the plight of answering the question of why the Israeli army, what happened to the Israeli army. Those two things you keep hearing, you've heard it, are consuming the state of Israel. And there's no answers yet. And Bibi Netanyahu is sitting on a very perilous position for himself. Willie, this is a tough situation all around.
Yeah, and Mika, Secretary of State Blinken also held a joint news conference with David Cameron, the foreign minister of the UK, yesterday. He was very explicit in saying there is a gap right now in what Israel says it is doing to protect civilians and what's actually happening on the ground. He said that, of course, after pledging America's support for Israel, but the criticism has become more public.
There's a gap in trust, and this is a real challenge for the administration and for Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, when he's dealing with a counterpart that you're not necessarily sure you're getting the full story. Think of it this way. This response time question is not just a little follow-up we'll leave for later. This is a disturbing reality. 8 hours? Israel is the size of what? Massachusetts, maybe? Benjamin Netanyahu was very quick to declare war. He could assess the situation and realize that Israel was at war. But 8 hours to get to women who are being raped, by the way, for a year, for months, disregarding a female analyst who said this is coming. There's a 40-page document spelling it out. And I want to spell this out even more specifically for you. Think about it. This is a small country. These gate crossings are militarized. You're going to tell me they don't have cameras? You're going to tell me they don't have panic buttons? You're going to tell me they have absolutely no communication with the outside world, that there was no warning of this, there was no sign of this, there was no way to know that we immediately need to respond and get there within minutes? This is a problematic question. And it's fair to ask. It should be asked now. And quite frankly, how does the administration go forward without knowing the answer? We're suffering the repercussions here in the United States. We're learning a lot about attitudes and the response to this complex situation. But that question needs to be answered.